I'm J.C. Harding, a UMGC doctoral candidate, and the topic of my dissertation is how to influence rural small farmers to adopt digital agricultural technologies. I am steadily and constantly mentored by Dr. Denise Brecken, as well as my fellow candidates. I'm providing this presentation not only for information on the ongoing progress of my dissertation, but for soliciting your feedback as well. As we all benefit from farm production, as consumers, we should all have serious interest in the future of agricultural production. Virtually every nation around the world, the United States included, is increasingly challenged with ensuring economic and food security for their people, particularly in the face of technological, demographic, and environmental changes. Along with individual, national, and regional initiatives, the United Nations recognized these issues and began pursuing achieving worldwide food security, economic growth, and sustainable agricultural production in their 2015 Sustainable Development Goals. In supporting these initiatives, it must be recognized that worldwide, rural small farms produce 35% of the world's agricultural bounty, not only for food, but for industrial uses as well. This is even more remarkable given the fact that in many developing countries, centuries-old practices such as animal-drawn plows and fertilizing crops with animal and human waste are still used. Because of the lack of economic, social, and information resources, farming in these rural areas continues to be a highly labor-intensive occupation and lifestyle. On the other hand, digital agricultural technologies have been developed over the past 3 decades and have become extensively implemented by commercial and large family farms. Enabled by both hardline and wireless internet services, these hardware and software tools, which include sensor-equipped drones, autonomous tractors and harvesting machines, decision support systems, and environmental sensors linked to the web through the Internet of Things and blockchain architectures, have improved farmer productivity, reduced labor cost, increased relative profitability, and enhanced business sustainability for these larger concerns. Meanwhile, rural small farmers have struggled to catch up. 2 major reasons behind this phenomenon are widely identified in academic studies and gray literature. First is the scarcity of broadband internet access in many rural areas, both in developed and developing nations, that precludes the use of these digital tools even if they were available. Focus on this paradigm alone by governments and agri-tech businesses have led to a build it and they will come mindset. This is echoed by some researchers, one who stated that what farmer would be such an idiot not to adopt these tools? The second, which is the focus of this current dissertation, is that there is a historic reluctance of rural small farmers to readily adopt new technology to improve their farming practices. Research has shown that there is more to technology adoption than just the rationalization of resource use and profits. So the intent of this dissertation is to change the focus of the conversation and the efforts to enhance rural small farmers' productivity, income, and sustainability. It should be less about broadband access, more of a technical policy than a management issue, and more about the willingness of these farmers to adopt the technology in order to meet these important pressing challenges. Therefore, my research question is, how can policymakers and agri-tech business people influence rural small farmers to adopt digital agricultural technology to affect the productivity, on-farm income, and sustainability of their farm businesses? For over 6 decades, academic research, government, and business reports and popular literature have suggested, with varying degrees of credibility, numerous reasons why rural small farmers seem to be more hesitant than other social and demographic groups to adopt new technologies for their farms. Performing a literature scoping review attempted to capture the theoretical foundations for these phenomena and enabled me to identify the strengths and weaknesses in these previous studies. My literature review covered various disciplines, of which 3 significant areas are shown here. In turn, my literature review allowed for a critical assessment of the theories applied in these previous studies. The 2 management theories which I deemed most relevant to my particular research problem are depicted here. Diffusion of innovations is a theory first popularized by Rogers that seeks to explain how, why, and at what rate new ideas and technology spread. The origins of the diffusion of innovations theory are varied and span multiple disciplines. Diffusion is the process by which an innovation is communicated over time, as shown in the process diagram on the left, among participants in a social system. Rogers proposes that 5 main elements influence the spread of a new idea: the innovation itself, communication channels, time, a social system, and the set of adopters, comprised of innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. Diffusion becomes evident in different ways and is strongly dependent on the type of adopters and their individual innovation decision processes taken within their own social context. The innovation must be widely adopted in order to self-sustain. Within the rate of adoption, there must be a point at which an innovation reaches critical mass, or the innovation dies off through social group rejection. Serving as an extension of his original theory of reasoned action, Adzen's theory of planned behavior provides a psychological model that links beliefs to behavior. His theory maintains that the 3 core components, attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control, directly influence and can likely predict an individual's behavioral intentions. According to this framework, human behavior is guided by 3 kinds of considerations: behavioral beliefs, normative beliefs, and control beliefs. Behavioral beliefs produce a favorable or unfavorable attitude toward the behavior. Normative beliefs result in a subjective norm, and control beliefs pertain to perceived behavioral control. Combined, the attitude toward the behavior, the subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control form a predicted behavioral intention. Perceived behavioral control specifically is presumed not only to affect the actual behavior directly, but also to affect it indirectly through behavioral intention. Generally, when an individual has a favorable attitude toward a behavior, the attitude is aligned with the relative norms, and the individual perceives that he or she has a high level of behavioral control. A strong intention to perform the behavior in question is expected. Lastly, given a sufficient degree of actual control over the behavior, the individual is expected to act on his or her intentions whenever the opportunity arises. Integrating the concepts provided by these 2 theoretical models provide the basis to construct an initial framework for understanding the adoption of digital agricultural technologies by rural small farmers, as depicted here. Furthermore, it enables the derivation of key terms, high-level a priori or deductive level 0 codes that provide an initial insight into the analysis process of this current research effort. Rather than a standard Cochrane-type systematic review process, my dissertation uses a realist review methodology as first suggested by Pawson and his colleagues. The 3 significant differences are: A, the iterative approach to the development of the research question in the search strategy, as shown in the diagram on the right. B, a greater emphasis on the researcher's judgment in the quality appraisal process, which allows for more inclusion of various perspectives through gray literature. And C, an iterative synthesis process, both aggregative and configurative, that intends to reveal what works or doesn't work for who, how it works or doesn't, and in particular what context a recommendation can be effectively applied. Using the Atlas TI software, I will be using both deductive and inductive coding techniques in an iterative fashion to clearly understand the interconnections among these emerging theories. My strategy for an evidence search required deconstructing my research question using the PCOC framework to construct a search string using keywords and Boolean operators. With this search string, I conducted a bibliographic search in 3 online databases as shown. The search string was slightly altered to meet the requirements for the Gale and Scopus databases. This diagram depicts the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews, or PRISMA, process used in identifying, screening, and selecting the documents containing my evidence. Entering my search string into the three bibliographic databases yielded 7,321 documents comprised of academic empirical studies, government reports, book chapters, news and magazine articles, and one online video. Ultimately, I have selected 66 documents to begin my quality appraisal and data extraction, which is currently underway. The systematic review process requires a quality appraisal of the selected literature to enable a transparent assessment of the rigor and relevance on which the systematic review research is based. Numerous techniques are available, but the source type of the selected literature should influence the choice of appraisal tool. In this dissertation, there is a wide variation of literature types, both quantitative and qualitative empirical studies, government reports, articles from trade publications and news sites, and even a video. Therefore, I sensed that I had to choose between a fit-for-purpose model that could be perceived as highly subjective by future readers, or Gough's weight of evidence methodology. I chose the latter because it provides a widely accepted framework that appraises rigor, coherence, integrity, and relevance with a low, medium, high grading scale. Assignment of grades still may be fairly subjective, but it seems to enable more rigor and transparency than a binary "it does" or "it doesn't" to fulfill the fit-for-purpose criteria. Although study limitations are usually compiled near the end of a dissertation, 4 limitations already exist, and I need to be consistently aware of these so I can do my best to reduce their influences. Since I'm using empirical studies that arise from numerous academic disciplines, along with a notable amount of gray literature, my analysis and synthesis will be fairly tedious, and I will need to be sharply attuned to how research methods are applied and how findings are explained. This will help me to better identify the linkages among various contexts, mechanisms, and outcomes across these disciplines. Secondly, there will be some publication bias, as only articles which reflected successful adoption cases likely would be published, rather than those which depict unsuccessful episodes or mixed results. Also, being a sole researcher, I'll bring my own biases and opinions into the research, without another to help temper my viewpoints. This is even more pronounced in this dissertation since I'm also a rural small farmer with some experience in adopting and rejecting digital agricultural technologies. Listed are the references used in this presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to your questions and comments.